All right, we're going to walk you through the Honda Shadow sprocket mod. Um, Everything I'm about ready to tell you, you can find online. Your torque specs, uh, size of bolts, sockets, all that shit you can find online. I'm not going to go into all that detail. I'm just going to walk you through the steps. This will not make your bike faster. It will smooth it out in fifth gear. You know, because these bikes are made to run at a high RPM, and you're hitting 55, 60 mile an hour. You're just fucking shaking all over the place. This will smooth out your bike. It's like having an overdrive or a sixth gear. Some people have mentioned that they lose a little bit on takeoff. I didn't notice that. Actually, my wife said she has a lot easier time taking off now. She can keep up with me because that's my beast over there. '06 Royal Star Midnight Venture 1300 4-cylinder. That son bitch will scoot. But she loves it. She's put over 1,000 miles on this bike since I did the mod, and she's just over the hill about it. But it's super simple. Let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get a blank sheet of paper and write down "no oil, do not start." And you're going to want to tape it somewhere where you can see it. Windshield, your seat. And I'll explain why here in a minute. But once you do that, drain your oil. If you haven't done an oil change lately, it's a good opportunity to do it. If you have, get a clean container, drain your oil into it. That way you can put it back in the bike later. Once you get all that done, put your oil plug back in, tighten it up to your spec, or don't over tighten it. You'll fuck up your threads, and then you're in a whole nother world of shit, but just tighten it back up. Then your next step is going to be to remove your exhaust. You got one acorn nut here, and you got one down here. And I will tell you, it's kind of a pain in the ass to get a socket on it because of the heat shield. Let me rephrase that. I have Vance and Hines on this. Depending on what kind of exhaust you got, just take your exhaust off. You got a nut there and a nut there. I was having issues with the front exhaust pipe coming loose, so I double nutted. It doesn't come loose anymore. And then depending on what kind of setup you got, there's two nuts right there you can see. Just take those both off and pull your exhaust off. It's easier with two people. I did this one by myself. It's a 2000 Honda Shadow Ace Deluxe. I've done a 2003 also. The only really difference I saw in the two bikes was the '03 had the speedometer on the tank. Other than that, they were virtually identical, except for the case gasket. I'll get to that here in a minute. But once you get your exhaust off, you'll want to remove this bolt and this bolt for your peg or your board or whatever you got. And then under here, see two bolts. You want to remove those two. Take your floorboard assembly off, your peg assembly. A lot of people will remove this rod here, your brake rod. I personally didn't do it because I didn't feel the need to. I just moved it out of the way. But some of these case bolts are a little pain in the ass to get to. Some you'll need a wrench, others use a socket on. But once you get your exhaust off and your floorboard off, now you can start taking your bolts out for your case. The first one you'll want to take out is this one. It's for your clutch cable. It's what holds your clutch cable in place. Take that bolt out first, and then unhook your clutch cable right here. That just pulls forward and pops right out. Super simple. You don't have to fuck with anything other than that. And once you get that off, start taking your case bolts out. They're all the same size, and you don't have to worry about fucking mixing them up or anything. There's 13 or 14 of them. I know there's a bunch of them underneath. But take all those out. I noticed on the 2000, it had a gasket on it. The 2003 didn't. It had just had sealer. This 2000 here with the gasket, the case come off fairly easily. The 2003 was a pain in the ass. We had to pry it and beat it with a fucking rubber mallet, but it finally came off. So, if you have a 2003 and you don't have a gasket on it, I advise putting one on it, because the one off the 2000 will fit, because they're all the same covers. They're all interchangeable. I don't know why they didn't put a gasket on it, but do whatever you want. Put a gasket on it, don't put a gasket on it. It's up to you. Just be sure you use the black RTV. Clean up your gasket service, all that good shit. Put a thin layer. Be sure you cover. You don't want to see the metal through the sealer, but don't fucking gob it on either. It'll cause you to leak. But anyway, once you get this cover off, you're going to see 4 bolts. You're going to see one here, 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 and here, with a flat metal plate with a bearing in the middle of it. Behind each bolt is your spring. You have a spring for each bolt. This is important. Don't take one bolt out at a time. Loosen each bolt the same. So turn this one once, turn this one once, turn this one once, turn this one once, and so on, until you get them all out. Because if you take one out at a time, you'll get that plate in the bind and that bearing will pop out. Don't ask me how I know. But if that happens to you, it's super easy to get back in. Just lay the bearing back. You'll understand when you get it all out. You'll see what I'm saying. Lay the bearing back where it's supposed to go. Take a rubber mallet, pop it back in. Easy. But 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to take anything else off but those 4 bolts, no springs. It helps take pictures before you start taking shit apart. Take pictures. That way you can put shit back on the way it goes. Whenever you put the springs back on, you tighten your bolts the same way. A little bit at a time, each bolt. A little here, 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 here. Just keep doing it until they're all tight. I think the spec was 9 pounds. It's not a lot. 9 pounds is a lot. I like to use thread lock on about fucking everything that I do. I don't use the red shit because it's a pain in the ass. The blue stuff. The manual doesn't really call for it. I just like to do it because peace of mind. You know, it's put a little drop on each bolt, except for your exhaust because it won't work there. But put a little dab on there and put it back together. Once you get your springs on, get it all tightened down, get your cover cleaned up, both gasket surfaces cleaned up. Black RTV. That's what you want. Any good gasket maker will work. You want to put sealer on the case and put sealer on the cover and let it set for 10-15 minutes. If you're using a gasket, put the sealer on the case and put the gasket on the case and let it sit for 10-15 minutes and kind of set up a little bit. I forgot to tell you, you got one here and one back here. They're just alignment pins. They pop right out. It gives you a little easier, helps you clean up that area a little easier, but they just pop right out. Be sure you put them back in when you're done. It helps line up the case cover and all that. Once you get everything cleaned up, got your sealer on, let it sit 15-20 minutes, whatever. Easily just put your case back on. You don't have to do anything special. You slide it back on. You don't have to worry about this. It'll go where it's supposed to go. Slide it back on. Start putting your bolts back in. Put that back in. It just pops back in. Start this bolt. Put all your bolts back in and just kind of tighten them up a little bit. If I remember right, it's supposed to be 19 foot-pounds of torque. On the 2003, I did 19 pounds. For some reason, snapped a bolt. It came right out. But so what I did was I set the torque wrench to 15 pounds, did every bolt, then went back and went up to 19, I think it was. You might want to double check that. But it seems really tight, but it's okay. But when you tighten these bolts, you want to do them crisscross. You don't want to just go in a line like this and tighten them up. You want to do this one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, until you have them torqued. Once you get them all torqued, let it set. Do not put your oil in it. Let some bitch set all night. Some people don't, some people do. I do, because it's almost a guaranteed chance that it's not going to leak. It gives that sealer time to set up and adhedes and all that good shit. But once you get that on, you can put your exhaust back on, everything back together, or you don't have to yet. It doesn't matter. You can do all that shit later. It doesn't really affect the wheel coming off. It gives you a little bit of clearance for your bolt, but we'll get that here in a second. But once you get all that shit, in here, you got one of these. You can replace them if you want, or use the old ones. I don't give a shit. I put new ones in. That way I knew I wasn't going to get a backfire from sucking air. But they're these are the off-brand, the Caltrek or Cal, whatever they're called. Amazon for $8 for 2 of them. Whereas on this bike, I've got the Honda OEM ones. I paid $8 a piece. I've got these for spares that were $8 for 2 of them, and it's the exact same freaking thing. So go figure. Honda and their OEM shit. But anyway, here's the cover gasket, side gasket. Amazon, I think it was like $9. Be really careful when you take it out of the package. It can tear fairly easily, but it's a good gasket. I haven't had any leaks with it. Anyway, yeah, you get that all back on. You can put your exhaust shit back on, whatever you want, or you can let it off until you get your rear wheel done, all that shit. Your thread lock all your bolts here, all your bolts there, blah blah blah. Anyway, now onto the fun shit. So anyway, now it's time for the sprocket change. So you want to raise your bike up. You want to jack your bike up a little bit. That way you can get the rear wheel off. Jack your bike up a little bit. Let's get down here. You want to loosen this bolt up. There's a nut on the opposite side. Loosen that up. Don't take it out yet. You want to take your adjusters. You want to turn them to where your wheel goes forward. You want slack in this chain. That way it's easier to get off. Go around the other side here. There's the nut. You have a spacer right here. Take a picture, that way you can orientate where it goes. Then you want to take this nut off and this cotter pin out. This can be a pain in the ass to get off. Just going to tell you now, it can be a pain in the ass. But it pops out the back right here. You want to take this off. All you got to do is push this forward and then unscrew this, and it comes right off. That's your rear brake. Don't lose your spring. Don't lose your nut. There's this adjuster. Turn it. You want to turn them both same. You don't want to fucking hammer them down tight. Just enough where they bottom out. I think it's, if I'm right, you go righty tighty, lefty loosey, righty tighty takes the wheel forward, lefty brings the wheel back. But hell, even before you do the axle, you can take this shit off here. That way you don't forget. But once you get all this shit off, you get your nut loose. Don't forget your spacer. That spacer is pretty important. Right there is your spacer. It'll come out, and this might pop off. It's no big deal. Just slide it back in. It didn't. There's nothing holding it in. It just pops right out. And there's your brake shoes. It's good time to check your brakes too while you got that off. But once you got all that shit loose, figure out how you're going to take your chain off. I got a chain breaker. I'll go through that here in a minute. You can cut it off, use a chain breaker. I don't give a shit how you get your chain off, but chain's got to come off. Pull your back wheel off, figure it out. Once you get your back wheel off, you've got These nuts here are holding your sprocket on. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 5 of them. Give my finger with the camera. But you get your wheel off. This whole assembly pops out. You have rubber dampers in there. You don't have to pull it out unless you're having issues with clunking when you're putting it in gear. I put new rubber bushings in here because they were only $14. I had it off. I thought, fuck it, why not? It's no big deal. 14 bucks ain't shit. But take these nuts off. 5 of them. Sprocket comes right off. Put your new sprocket on. Tighten up your bolts. Put a couple drops of blue sealer on there. Find your torque specs online. If you don't have a torque wrench, it's not the end of the world. Just, I mean, if you've ever tightened and loosened bolts, you know whenever you're tightening too much, so you don't fuck shit up. But sorry for the language. I work in a factory, so I'm used to it. But just tighten them up, and then you're done with your rear wheel for now. Then you come up here. Here's your cover for your front sprocket. The OEM sprocket's 41 tooth on the rear, 17th on the front, 17 sprocket on the front, or tooth on the front. You can't change the teeth on the front. You have to stay 17. Take out this bolt here. Could be a bolt or an Allen, depends on what model you have. And then you can't see it, but right here, there it is. There's a pin right there. Pull that pin out. There's a washer there. Pull this out. It's not really a pin. It's more of like a clamp. Oh, you just pop it out. It pops right out. Take that bolt out. This cover comes right off. Super simple. You'll find your sprocket in there. 2 bolts holding your sprocket on. There's a keeper. Take the bolts out. Pop that keeper off. It's super easy. There's no trick to it. It just comes right off. Put your new sprocket on. Letters facing out. Put your keeper on. It'll slide in with the teeth, and then you turn it to line the bolts up, and it's what keeps the sprocket from coming off. You'll understand once you get it all off. I'm trying to remember torque specs. I don't remember the torque on this. It wasn't a whole lot. Blue thread lock. You got that on. Now we can go to the chain. So here's the deal with the chain. Depending on what chain you get, a DID, Honda doesn't make the OEM chain or sprocket anymore. They do, however, still make the OEM Master Link, which is a rivet type Master Link. In the manual, they recommend a DID or another one. I can't remember what the fuck it was. I went with the DID. It's a little more expensive, but they recommended the DID V8. Well, DID doesn't make the V8 anymore. They changed it to a VX, which is an X-ring chain. It's supposed to be like the Cadillac of chains. But when you order this DID chain, it will come with this type of Master Link. Fucking that's a rivet type Master Link. Comes with a little packet of grease. Put grease on here. Put your little rubber ring on there. It doesn't matter how they go on, like this. You slip that through the chain. You get 2 more rings you stick on, and then you put this on. But the issue is you can't do the rivet unless you have the right tool, which happens to be this. This little puppy's $100. Love it. But I know the majority of you won't do the rivet type, so what you have to do is you have to order, where the hell did I do with it? Here we go. This is a DID. It's hard to do this one-handed. This is a DID clip link. I don't recommend the clips. A lot of people use them. But anyway, hold on a second. So unprepared. I got the day off today. I was going to do this tomorrow, but I got to work and they're like, hey, you can go home. I was like, cool. Anyway. So this is for the DID. This is a standard. It doesn't matter if it's X, whatever. This will work with the DID VX, whatever chain. This is a DID clip. It has a clip. Wish the hell I would adjust so I can see shit. But you get the picture. It's a clip. There's instructions. Follow the instructions. It's easy. The one thing you do want to do, though, is whenever you put this clip on your chain, you want the clip, you want the closed end of the clip going in the direction that the chain's moving. If your chain's moving this way, that's the direction you want the closed end. Which, if your chain's moving this way, which it doesn't, you want it that way. But your chain will be moving this way, so you want it facing that way. I've got a Honda OEM, got a DID, and I got the DID clip type. Here's another chain breaker tool that I bought. I use this to break the chain, and I use this to rivet. Riveting is a whole different animal. If you got the right tools, it's really easy. It was the first time I've ever riveted a chain, but it's super easy. When you put your wheel back on, grease your axle. Get online, look how to adjust your chain slack, all that good stuff. This is a really easy mod, super easy. But I got all kinds of tools here, but this shit's awesome. Chain wax, love it. Trying to think. I know this is a really quick video. If you want to do this mod, you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll help you, walk you through it the best I can. Trying to remember, like I said, get online, look how to remove your rear wheel, how to adjust your chain slack, the chain clip, all that stuff. But if anybody's got any questions, let me know. Peace out.